Hello, friends! Today you'll learn a mysterious story of the origin and development of the very first Egyptian necropolis in Saqqara, a sacred burial ground that played a crucial role in the funerary traditions of ancient Egypt, the Pyramid of Djoser. This is the first stone building and the first architectural structure in human history. Besides this, Saqqara is also home to the pyramids of other Egyptian pharaohs, but from later periods. So today, we will delve into the history of Saqqara. Dear friends, please subscribe and like our channel. And thank you for your support. Okay, I'm beginning to tell my story, how Saqqara became the main royal necropolis of early dynasties of ancient Egypt. Saqqara is the necropolis of the ancient city of Memphis. Memphis was the first capital of a unified Egypt. In fact, the unification of Egypt was marked by Pharaoh Menes' established Memphis. I have to make a notice that Pharaoh Menes is a legendary person. We don't really know if Pharaoh Menes ever existed. It may be two historical pharaohs are hidden under name of Menes, Hornarmer, and Horoha. So, I prefer to use the name Menes to describe this ruler. Anyway, Egypt became a single state, the first unified nation in human history. Memphis is located at the beginning of the Nile Delta in the northern part of Egypt. Memphis was inhabited from the earliest dynastic times, and its people worshipped the god Ptah. The unity of some religious beliefs was characteristic of all of Egypt. In modern terms, the ancient Egyptians believed that after death, their soul would travel to the land of Amenti, the land of the dead. According to their beliefs, this land was located in the west. That is why, to the west of Memphis, on the edge of the Sahara Desert, the ancient inhabitants of Memphis established their necropolis. The formation of the necropolis in Saqqara took place just after Pharaoh Menes established Memphis. After the unification of Egypt, Pharaoh Menes, the first pharaoh of a unified Egypt and the ruler who had just established Memphis, built his tomb in Saqqara. This was his second tomb. The first tomb of Menes is located at Abydos, the traditional necropolis of capital of Upper Egypt. In addition to Pharaoh Menes, high-ranking officials and close associates of the pharaohs of the early dynasties also began constructing their tombs in Saqqara. Thus, Pharaoh Menes initiated the tradition of building two tombs for pharaohs and high-ranking officials, one in Abydos and the other in Saqqara. The presence of two tombs symbolized complete authority over the entire country. This tradition was upheld by the pharaohs of ancient Egypt for around 400 years. The last pharaoh to follow this tradition was Pharaoh Djoser at the end of the Third Dynasty, who built the first pyramid in human history in Saqqara and also had a mastaba tomb in the Abydos region. This is the main widely accepted theory of ancient Egyptian history from the formation of the state to the end of the Third Dynasty. This theory leaves many unanswered questions. First, what compelled Pharaoh Menes to specifically seek and establish Memphis, rather than taking control of the entire Nile Delta with direct access to the Mediterranean Sea? What made Pharaoh Menes believe that controlling Memphis would guarantee his authority over all of unified Egypt? What was so important about Memphis? After all, Memphis was just a small, newly established town. Let's try to examine the available facts together and find some answers to these questions. Let's compare the funerary architecture of the early dynasties in Abydos and Saqqara. They are quite similar to each other. The first pharaohs built tomb structures that resembled a rectangular courtyard enclosed by a brick wall, generally of considerable size. We can observe similar structures in Abydos and in other locations in southern Egypt. Likewise, we see analogous structures in Saqqara. There is also one very significant difference between the funerary architecture of Saqqara and Abydos. In Saqqara, there is a large number of deep, well-crafted burial shafts, some reaching depths of up to 30 meters, 90 feet. These shafts are expertly cut into the bedrock of the Saqqara Plateau, distinguishing them from the tomb structures found in Abydos. In addition to the shafts, Saqqara also features vast underground galleries stretching for miles, containing numerous chambers and passageways that were constructed according to a pre-planned architectural design. No similar underground structures or subterranean complexes are found in Abydos. The first underground tombs resembling the Saqqara labyrinths only begin to appear in Abydos during the Middle Kingdom. Now, I will present my version of history, explaining why Pharaoh Menes was so determined to establish Memphis exactly at this place. After 20 years of studying the history of the early dynasties, I have formed a strong impression that the shafts and underground galleries in the Saqqara necropolis may have already existed before Pharaoh Menes took control of this territory. That Pharaoh Menes' true objective was the seizure of Saqqara with its underground shafts and galleries, rather than simply the establishment of a small settlement like Memphis. Real target was to create convenient place to live nearby the plateau where Saqqara necropolis is located. Let's take a closer look at the architectural structures found in the Saqqara necropolis. The most significant and important among them is, of course, the complex of Pharaoh Djoser, featuring his famous step pyramid, which was the first stone structure in human history. The funerary complex of Pharaoh Djoser is a rectangular structure of enormous size. It includes Djoser's pyramid, the southern shaft, several cult buildings and temples, all of which are enclosed by a long stone wall measuring 30 feet in height. The length of the complex is 1,785 feet. The width of the complex is 909 feet. The total perimeter of the wall is about 1 mile. Its height, as I mentioned earlier, is approximately 34 feet, and the thickness of the wall is around 13 to 15 feet. In addition to its grand above-ground structures, the complex includes an extensive underground infrastructure consisting of 2 massive shafts, each approximately 90 feet deep, and an underground network of tunnels, chambers, and passageways, forming a vast subterranean system beneath the complex. The total length of the underground galleries in Djoser's complex exceeds 3 miles, and the number of underground chambers reaches several hundred. Many years ago, during the restoration of Djoser's complex, I had the opportunity to visit its underground chambers and see everything with my own eyes. I want to share this experience with you. Please feel free to ask your questions in the comments. We will be happy to answer them. I know there may be many questions. So, in the video, you can see Djoser's pyramid, the surrounding structures, and most importantly, our descent into the shaft of Djoser's pyramid and its underground chambers. In this footage, we present both video and photo materials, allowing you to see with your own eyes what it looked like during the restoration process. First, I will tell you about Djoser's pyramid itself. Djoser's pyramid is a 6-step pyramid constructed from limestone. For the first time in human history, a building was made of stone rather than brick. The dimensions of Djoser's pyramid are as follows. Its height is approximately 203 feet. The base is rectangular, measuring 397 feet by 358 feet. Djoser's pyramid was built in several stages and consists of multiple mastabas stacked on top of each other. However, the most important feature of Djoser's pyramid is the shaft, which is 93 feet deep and located directly beneath the pyramid. This shaft has a rectangular shape, with its sides measuring 30 by 36 feet. As we know from historical sources, Djoser's pyramid was built by his vizier Imhotep. However, it remains uncertain whether Imhotep also constructed the shaft beneath the pyramid or if it was made by others. In my personal opinion, the shaft appears to have been built long before Imhotep, as its construction techniques differ significantly from those used in Djoser's pyramid itself. The shaft has a rectangular cross-section and was constructed vertically downward. All angles and surfaces are precisely maintained, in stark contrast to Djoser's pyramid. The pyramid itself is built from roughly cut stones, with irregular angles and misaligned directions. The entire structure gives the impression that Djoser's people discovered a sand-filled shaft in the plateau, and Imhotep built a mastaba over it. After that, the sand was removed from the shaft, and they then began using it for practical purposes. At that time, there would have been no other feasible way to construct a dome or covering over the shaft. From historical sources, we know quite well that Imhotep built the pyramid at the request of Djoser. However, we have no evidence or clues about who might have constructed the shaft beneath Djoser's pyramid. Therefore, Egyptologists also attributed to Imhotep, although, in my opinion, this is not entirely accurate. Evidence suggesting that the shaft predates Djoser's pyramid includes the tunnels in the side walls of the shaft, which exit on one side and re-enter the rock on the opposite side, or in some cases, run partially open within the structure. This suggests that the tunnels were dug through the shaft while it was still filled with sand. It seems likely that these tunnels were used by some other inhabitants of the area before the arrival of the ancient Egyptians under the rule of Menes. However, this is just my own theory regarding the origin of this shaft. It is also very difficult to explain what could have motivated ancient people to carve these underground tunnels into the rock, not necessarily at a depth of 90 feet, but at least half that depth or more. At the bottom of the shaft lies the so-called sarcophagus of Djoser. However, this is not a traditional stone coffin. Instead, the structure is assembled from granite beams and is sealed from above with a massive stone plug. In addition, at the level of the sarcophagus, at the very bottom of the shaft, several tunnel branches extend into the rock. Within these tunnels are Djoser's cult chambers, where bas-reliefs and blue faience tiles, laid during Djoser's time, have been preserved. All of these underground chambers appear quite mysterious. Moreover, they do not give the impression of being burial chambers. Instead, they resemble living spaces, as if they were once inhabited and used for daily activities. It gives the strong impression that this was a subterranean royal palace for Pharaoh Djoser. Only later, after his death, was he buried at the bottom of this shaft. In addition, within the underground tunnels and chambers, an enormous collection of artworks gathered by Pharaoh Djoser was discovered. This collection includes more than 30,000 artifacts, consisting mainly of stone vases, stone jars, and other similar objects. Thus, it appears that Djoser not only created an underground palace where he evidently lived, but he also established the first art museum in human history, housing a vast collection of artifacts gathered from across Egypt, including items from his predecessor pharaohs. In addition to what I have already described, we know that during the 26th dynasty, the underground chambers of Djoser's pyramid were transformed into the Djoser Museum, which attracted tourists and visitors. Graffiti left by these visitors has been discovered within the site. This museum became the largest religious and cultural center in ancient Egypt during the 26th dynasty. During the functioning of the museum in the 26th dynasty, a massive restoration was carried out in Djoser's underground chambers. Additionally, a new entrance was created on the southern side of the pyramid, which is still used today. Because of these modifications, it is very difficult to determine which chambers and underground structures were originally built in Djoser's time and which were later additions. At the southern part of the yard of Djoser complex in Saqqara, we found another big shaft. The southern shaft at the Djoser complex in Saqqara is one of the most intriguing and enigmatic structures within Egypt's first pyramid complex. Let's see what are key features of the southern shaft. The southern shaft is located south of the Step Pyramid, within the southern tomb of Djoser's complex. It descends to a depth of approximately 92 feet into the bedrock at the bottom. It connects to a burial chamber lined with granite blocks. The chamber resembles elements of Djoser's main burial shaft, leading some to believe that it might have been a secondary burial chamber of Djoser. What was the purpose of the southern shaft? Because no mummy remains were found there. It may be a symbolic tomb for the king's spirit Ka. Many scholars believe that the southern shaft and tomb were not intended for Djoser's actual burial, but rather as a cenotaph, a symbolic resting place for the Ka, or spiritual essence of the king. In ancient Egyptian beliefs, rulers often had dual tombs, one for the physical body and another as a spiritual residence. The shaft may have been linked to the Hepsed festival, a royal rejuvenation ceremony. Some suggest that ritual objects or sacred relics were stored here to ensure the king's rebirth and divine status in the afterlife. The positioning of the shaft mirrors the traditional dual burial concept found in earlier Abydos royal tombs, where one tomb was real and the other was a ritualistic counterpart. The underground galleries beneath Djoser's pyramid are connected by a complex maze of tunnels, which might have symbolized the king's journey to the afterlife. The southern shaft and tomb have been explored and restored in modern times, revealing fragments of blue faience tiles, which were meant to imitate the decoration of a palace facade. These tiles link the subterranean world of the tomb with royal symbolism, reinforcing the idea that it was designed as an eternal palace for the king in the afterlife. Some scholars suggest that additional burial chambers or hidden structures may still be undiscovered in the area. The southern shaft at Djoser's Saqqara complex remains one of the most intriguing aspects of early pyramid construction. While its exact function is still debated, it is widely believed to be a ritualistic tomb, reinforcing the king's divine connection and ensuring his immortality. It offers a fascinating glimpse into the evolution of Egyptian funerary architecture, bridging the traditions of the early dynastic period with the grand pyramids that followed. Next underground structure in Saqqara necropolis we're talking about is Serapeum. The Serapeum of Saqqara is one of the most fascinating and enigmatic sites in ancient Egypt, serving as the burial place of the sacred Apis bulls, which were worshipped as earthly manifestations of the god Ptah. Located in Saqqara, near Memphis, this vast underground complex was used primarily during the New Kingdom, 18th dynasty, circa 1400 BCE, through the late period and Ptolemaic eras. The Serapeum was rediscovered in 1851 by the French archaeologist Auguste Mariette, who found a series of tunnels filled with massive sarcophagi. The tombs date back to the reign of Amenhotep III of 18th dynasty, but were expanded under Ramses II of 19th dynasty and used up until the Ptolemaic period. The site was dedicated to the cult of Apis, a sacred bull considered an incarnation of Ptah, the creator god of Memphis. The Serapeum consists of two main galleries. The lesser vaults is a narrow tunnel system with smaller sarcophagi, used in the earlier phases of Apis bull burials. And the greater vaults is a massive, straight corridor lined with enormous granite sarcophagi, each weighing up to 70 tons. Each burial chamber contains a huge stone sarcophagus, most carved from granite brought from Aswan. These were presumably designed to house the mummified remains of the sacred bulls. All massive granite sarcophagi were found empty, leading to speculation about ancient tomb robbers or ritualistic removals. But this theory does not look plausible. It really looks like sarcophagi were always empty. Some walls bear inscriptions from later visitors, including Greek and Roman travelers, confirming its continued significance into the Hellenistic era. There are a few mysteries and unanswered questions. How were the giant sarcophagi moved? Some of these 70-ton sarcophagi were transported from Aswan hundreds of kilometers away, but the exact method remains unknown. Theories suggest ramps, rollers, and manpower, but the precision of their placement remains a mystery. Why are sarcophagi empty? Some tombs appear to have been opened in antiquity, possibly for ritual purposes or tomb raiding. Some scholars speculate that some bulls were symbolically interred elsewhere. So, there is no clear answer on this question. Next underground structure in Saqqara we're talking about is Labyrinth of Hotepsekhemwy, located on south of Djoser's complex partly underneath the Pyramid of Djoser. You can see this structure on next few pictures. The underground galleries of Hotepsekhemwy in Saqqara are part of one of the most mysterious and least explored structures from the early Egyptian dynasties. Hotepsekhemwy was the first ruler of Egypt's second dynasty around 2890 BCE, and his burial site is believed to be located in Saqqara, an area later used extensively for royal tombs. The subterranean complex is massive, featuring a labyrinth of tunnels, galleries, and chambers that extend deep below the desert surface. The galleries are cut into bedrock and don't bear similarities to the tombs of the First Dynasty kings at Abydos. The tunnel network is believed to be a storage and ritual area, potentially housing burial goods or religious objects associated with the king's journey to the afterlife. Some massive stone blocks have been found inside, which may have served as doorways or structural reinforcements. While no actual sarcophagus or body has been found in the galleries, it's believed that Hotepsekhemwy may have been buried here or that it served as part of a larger funerary complex. The layout and architectural advancements hint at the transition from mastaba burials to some other forms, including Djoser's complex, which was constructed nearby in the Third Dynasty. The underground galleries may have housed royal treasures or ritualistic artifacts. Some archaeologists speculate that further excavation might reveal new insights into early dynastic burial customs. The precise function of the galleries is still debated, but they could have been part of an elaborate funerary enclosure or a symbolic underworld palace meant to house the king's ka. The site remains largely unexcavated, but ground-penetrating radar and modern exploration methods may one day uncover more about its hidden secrets. We visited these underground galleries for a few times, and every time brings more questions than answers. Next underground structure in Saqqara we're talking about is the shaft of Amenhotep. It is located on south of Djoser's complex, by the Pyramid of Djoser and Labyrinth I described already. The Amenhotep shaft in Saqqara is one of the deepest and most enigmatic tomb shafts discovered in the necropolis. It is located near the Pyramid of Djoser and is associated with a high-ranking official named Amenhotep, who lived during the late period of ancient Egypt. Depth of the shaft descends approximately 98 feet deep into the bedrock. At the bottom, it leads to several subterranean corridors, which contain intricate architectural elements. The walls feature inscriptions and funerary texts, likely meant to ensure the deceased's safe passage to the afterlife. Archaeologists have found anthropomorphic sarcophagus and bad, preserved mummy inside the sarcophagus, suggesting a high-status burial. The identity of Amenhotep is debated, but he is believed to have been a noble or high-ranking official from the late period circa 7th or 6th century BCE. It is possibly connected to the 26th dynasty, Sate period, or an earlier phase of Libyan rule. The shaft's depth and complexity indicate an elite burial, as only high-status individuals were granted such elaborate tombs. The funerary texts and artifacts suggest strong connections to Osirian beliefs, reinforcing Amenhotep's devotion to the gods. Some scholars propose that the shaft may have been reused in later periods, a common practice in Saqqara due to its long history as a burial ground. Next underground structures we're talking about are so-called Persian tombs. They are located by the shaft of Amenhotep and look kind of similar to it. There are 3 Persian tombs, same deep shafts with sarcophagi in the bottom. They are a bit smaller than the shaft of Amenhotep. At the end, I'd like to say, there are at least 6 huge, deep, almost square shafts in Saqqara and around 10 miles of underground galleries and chambers. All these underground structures look like huge underground city way larger than Memphis city itself. We are not sure who and when built these underground structures, but we know they were inhabited for thousands of years, and it's really possible that these underground structures were a point of attraction for first Egyptian pharaoh Menes. Let's think about this. Thank you for watching my video. Thank you for your attention and support. See you soon.